For decades, Paul Newman was admired not just as one of Hollywood's most talented and charismatic actors, but also as one of its most decent and dignified men. Known for his piercing blue eyes, effortless charm, and iconic performances in films like Cool Hand Luke, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and The Sting, Newman earned respect far beyond the big screen. He was a philanthropist, a race car enthusiast, and a devoted husband to Joanne Woodward. But even the most admired figures in Hollywood aren't without enemies. And behind the scenes, there was one man whom Paul Newman truly couldn't stand. The tension between them became one of the most whispered about rivalries in film history. The man in question was Steve McQueen, another Hollywood titan of the same era. Both Newman and McQueen were symbols of masculine cool, confident, rebellious, and effortlessly stylish. They dominated the silver screen in the 1960s and 1970s, often competing for the same roles and the same recognition. But while fans loved to see them together, especially in the 1974 blockbuster The Towering Inferno, those who worked with them knew that the relationship behind the camera was anything but friendly. According to people close to both actors, the rivalry began with ego and competition. McQueen reportedly envied Newman's spotless public image and social conscience, while Newman found McQueen's arrogance and unpredictability difficult to tolerate. On the set of The Towering Inferno, both stars demanded top billing. Neither wanted to appear as the supporting actor, and negotiations became tense. The studio eventually came up with a compromise, alternating name placement and ensuring that both men had exactly the same number of lines. Even their walking scenes were choreographed to make sure neither appeared taller or more dominant on screen. It was Hollywood pride at its fiercest, but for Paul Newman, the dislike ran deeper than professional competition. Friends said he was frustrated by McQueen's refusal to take acting seriously, his reckless lifestyle, and his attitude toward others in the industry. Newman, who valued discipline, respect, and craft, reportedly saw McQueen as someone who wasted his talent. Paul respected hard work and preparation, one close friend said. Steve had a chip on his shoulder and acted like he didn't owe anyone anything. That rubbed Paul the wrong way. Despite their differences, both men quietly respected each other's abilities, though neither would admit it publicly. Newman once acknowledged McQueen as a real movie star, while McQueen reportedly kept a close eye on Newman's career, determined to outshine him. But the feud became personal when McQueen allegedly turned down roles simply because Newman was attached to them. There were also rumors that McQueen resented Newman's political activism and humanitarian efforts, believing they were done for publicity rather than passion, something that deeply offended Newman, who devoted much of his life to genuine charitable causes, including his Newman's Own Foundation. Still, Newman was not a man who held grudges easily. In later years, as both men aged and faced their own battles, Newman with cancer and McQueen with his own declining health, the bitterness began to fade. After McQueen's passing in 1980, Newman reportedly reflected on their rivalry with surprising honesty. "We were two sides of the same coin," he once said. "I admired him more than I ever admitted." Even so, those closest to Newman maintained that the tension between the two was very real, and that no one ever managed to get under his skin quite like Steve McQueen. It wasn't hatred in the ordinary sense. It was frustration, competitiveness, and mutual recognition of greatness. They were too similar. Two men born to lead, never to follow. In the end, the so-called hatred between Paul Newman and Steve McQueen was less about animosity and more about pride. They were rivals who pushed each other to be better. And in doing so, they helped define an era of Hollywood that audiences still celebrate today. It was a clash of icons, two giants who fought for respect in their own ways. But even through the friction, there was something neither could deny. They needed each other to be their best.